Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Monday. My name is Sean Shapiro. This is Ask a Traffic Cop, and this is the place on the internet where you can ask your traffic and police questions for an hour. Yeah, we talk about them all. We'll talk about it all. That's right. We want to make sure that your questions get answered. If you like this sort of stuff, you're in the right place. If you don't like it, maybe it's not for you. I don't know. Can't make everybody happy, but we certainly do try. If you are new to this channel, I'm a police officer that works for the Toronto Police Service. We are located in beautiful, sunny Toronto. It's in Ontario, Canada. And the laws that we discuss here are focused on Ontario law. Criminal law is going to be Canada-wide. And yeah, we can talk about things from other areas, but the focus is always going to be Ontario. If you're visiting here, great. If you're from here going somewhere else, we'll see what we can do to help you. And sometimes we can find the answer. Sometimes we don't have time. But we do our best in every case. Something to quickly discuss. If you are watching and you want to ask us questions, you could be watching on a multitude of different platforms because we're everywhere. We are on LinkedIn Live. Then that platform you can ask in the Q&A box. That's the little bubble with the question mark in it. Ooh, let me check to see if that's no, it's still not working on TikTok. It's only been like 3 months. I went on vacation. It came back and everything was broken. If you're on TikTok, by all means, please use the chat function. We have folks that are helping out to send me the questions as they come in, but I am not actually in the chat focused on your questions. That's why askatrafficcop.ca is so helpful if you have access to a computer to use it as well. But hang in, we do our best. And Joe says he can't read. What do you mean I can't read? I don't focus on the chat. Because Q&A used to work and it was really magical and hopefully they bring it back. That said, we will do our very best to get all of your questions. All right. If you're watching on... Let's see here. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, or Facebook, if you send me a message, if you actually make a comment, it shows up on my screen. It's awesome. Makes life very easy. I get you there. Now, if you're on Twitter, my apologies. It doesn't work. You can't actually message me on Twitter. It's viewing only. But we love you, and we want you to be able to ask questions, so use trafficcop.ca to go into volley. Now, let's get into some. Well, actually, before we get into some questions, I just want to, pay the bills, which is just what I like to say before speaking about Vision Zero Enforcement Team. It doesn't actually pay the bills. It's just something I have to say, and I like to sound radio-y when I say it. Okay, August 29th, that's today. Vision Zero Enforcement Team, a magical group of officers who are focused on changing the way people drive in our city. They're focused on the folks that engage in behavior that is likely to lead to serious injury and death on our roads. The big four: speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. Those are the things that we know are behaviors, the decisions that drivers make that put people in danger. And we've seen some horrific things happen on the roadways. And more often than not, it's one of those four things that led to that collision. And where are they today? 14 Division and 33 Division. Those are the neighborhoods of Christie, Ossington, Annex, Little Italy, Parkwoods, Donalda, Bayview Village, York Mills. Yes, those are places that have real people who live in them and that want to benefit from the reduced collision and risk that occur when our officers are out there changing driver behavior. They do it by issuing tickets, folks. That's what they do. They issue a lot of tickets. Okay, getting into questions now. What are the laws that LED headlights, what is this? Laws on these LED headlights everyone uses. If you're talking about factory LED headlights, they're legal. The manufacturers have to have them meet the requirements for Ontario in order to sell a car here. If you're talking about aftermarket LED headlights, my understanding is they don't meet the grade and they're not legal. There's a brightness. They have to be able to meet a certain requirement, the specifics of which I am not aware of to give you advice on this, other than if you're buying aftermarket, make sure that they are legal, and chances are they're not. A lot of people, I was researching actually signal lights. I had to change a light bulb in my rear signal was out. So I always buy extra bulbs, keep them in the glove box, and I'm looking at changing from incandescent to LED. Just something I want to look into. I want to have the best and the lowest, I want to stop. Signal lights go out on my truck all the time, like constantly. So I'm tired of buying bulbs and I want something that produces less heat and possibly lives longer. So I'm researching LED. Taillights, there's a dozen of them. And every review that I can, actually it's more than a dozen, there's a gazillion of them. Every time I read a review on them, there seems to be very mixed reviews as to whether or not you should buy the cheap $12.95 LED and the expensive $30 LED. I'm assuming the LED that's $30 is supposed to be better. But why? heat management is apparently the biggest thing. So a lot of the cheap bulbs coming out of coming overseas, they're just not well constructed, and they don't stay at the right color temperature, and they are all over the place. So anyway, just my personal experience in researching them, and I don't really have a better answer for you. So let's move on to other questions that I do have answers for. Okay, do people with accessibility parking permits have permission to park basically everywhere? No. There are restrictions. Everywhere, is it everywhere? You can park in no parking zones. So if you have a no parking zone, yes, you can park there with an accessible permit. And that does make a lot of opportunity. The idea being that if you have an accessible permit, you have mobility issues, and you can park out in front of most places with that permit. You cannot be in a no stopping or no standing zone. You cannot be in construction zones and other of the like, because you end up getting towed. But it's a good question, and thank you for asking it. Are interior lights with color allowed while driving? Red is well, there's no regulation as to the color of the interior lights, but red is specifically installed in vehicles now to reduce the amount of impact that light has on your night driving. Night vision is important. Red light preserves it. White light causes your eyes to constrict. Is that the opposite of dilate? Yeah, so there is a deal with that. Is it illegal? No, it's not illegal. And my interior lights, like my footwells, I can change the rainbow. I think I got it set to purple based on my kids saying that that's what they wanted. Can you drive with your G2 in America? Yes, you can. You can drive interprovincially or into the United States with your G2. It is a conditional or a probationary license. You do have to follow the rules, and while you're visiting the States or any other province, you have to follow those rules, or your license or you'll get ticketed for contravening those. What is the fine for no front plates? You know the reason we require a front plate. Yes and yes. It's $110, and the reason is you're required by law. At one point, Doug Ford looked at, getting rid of the front plate when he became premier, and that was to reduce the costs of manufacturing. 2 plates are more expensive than 1 plate. And he went to his trusted advisors. Those happened to be a bunch of chiefs of police at was it Canadian chiefs of police or Ontario chiefs of police? Maybe Ontario chiefs of police that weighed in on this. And it was determined for public safety, 2 plates were better than 1. Why? Because we could find vehicles faster. And with automated plate readers, things like that coming into technology, it's just a good thing. So that's why the requirement under law is that you are issued 2, you must display 2, and if you don't, you get a ticket. And if you continuously do it, you can upgrade yourself to a visit to court. It's fun. That's not fun. Okay. Is it illegal to drive What is this? Is it legal to drive daylight with fog lights on? It is absolutely legal to drive with your fog lights on. They're fog lights. They may not, I don't know why you want them on, but sure, you can have them on. You can have a maximum of 4 headlights operational on your motor vehicle at any given time. Daylight, nighttime, doesn't matter. 4 of them. That's 4 lights that are more than 300 candela worth of power and properly directed at the same time. I don't imagine it being a big deal during the day, but you should know that your lights are supposed to be properly directed, or you can be charged for improper headlights. Let's see here. Oh, hi. Do you say that there's no benefit to having noisy muffler on your vehicle? What evidence do you have? Well, I know something about the Doppler effect, and I know that police sirens, when you're behind someone doing 100 kilometers an hour, only function when you're about a car length behind someone. That's when people start hearing you, really. So Doppler effect is a sciencey response for you. The people who hear you are the people sleeping, the people who are driving, or not driving, but walking. They hear you. Most of the people who hear you are annoyed by you. Loud pipes do not save lives. It is a fallacy. But they do annoy communities a lot, to the point where that's one of our most popular complaints when people call into police. And a lot of discussion online, a lot of discussion to the mayor's office and other MPs and so on. You know what? If you got to conform to the rules. And just because you like it doesn't mean it's legal. I brake checked the car behind me for tailgating, and they swerved off the road. Who's at fault? Well, you could be criminally at fault if you brake check. At very least, it's illegal to brake check someone. Stopping for no reason, emergency maneuvers with the intention to impact the person behind you, yeah, you'd be responsible. You caused that collision. Now, they could also be, tailgating, and could also be responsible for that. But you taking that initiative to slam on the brakes to give them a message, that message that resulted in them becoming involved in a collision, yeah, you're responsible. Can e-bikes exceed 32 kilometers an hour when going downhill, even when assist maxed out at 32? The 32 kilometer an hour rating is for flat surfaces. Flat surface, 32 kilometers an hour, regardless of whether it's electric only or a mixed mode. If you're going downhill, gravity takes place, and that you can't get charged for. You've not created it's flat road. Let's go. But then again, I see e-bikes going up hills at 60 kilometers an hour, so that's a totally different situation. That would be illegal e-bikes that don't conform. Now, when we get to are mopeds legal to bring into malls to park? Into malls? Mopeds are motor vehicles. They require license, ownership, and insurance. You need to be a licensed operator to ride a moped. Can you drive into a parking lot? Sure. Are they motor vehicles? Yes. So I'm not sure where you're going with this, but mopeds are motor vehicles just like a car. You can go into a mall parking lot. Into a mall, indoors, I imagine they'd have a problem with that. Are studded winter tires legal in Canada? Every province is going to have different rules about this. Ontario, it's only Northern Ontario that allows for winter tires to be utilized, and it's only during certain months. If you're going to be in Southern Ontario, you have to be living in Northern Ontario and only visiting, and there's a maximum amount of time that you can spend in Southern Ontario with studded winter tires. I even think it regulates what kind of studded winter tires you can have, not by brand, but by type or style. Plate tag. Can we now remove them from the license plate? It's confusing. Yes, if your plates are valid, you need not display your sticker. They are no longer required. Which reminds me, I really need to renew mine. And it takes no time, but I keep talking about it. I took care of my dad's. I just haven't done mine. I'm still valid, folks, just so you know. I'm not breaking no laws here. Is there rules on securing animals in a vehicle? Inside the vehicle, no, other than the fact that they can't be on a driver's lap or interfering with the driver. The suggestions, we have an episode of our podcast that includes the SPCA, and the suggestion is, and actually we did another one with the Toronto Humane Society, but the answer is that they should be tethered or crated in the back seat. That's the safest place for them. And of course not left in hot vehicles in the summer, because they have an unfortunate habit of dying. Just looking over at everyone who's coming in through other platforms. Jacob says, good morning from YouTube. I did have a great weekend. Thanks for asking. We got a question about exhaust tips on cars that stick out a little. Depends on how much they stick out. But exhaust tips, generally speaking, are not a problem. They're just tips. They're just for looks. Mind you, if people walk by and they get hurt, I imagine they might be suing you. But that's a civil matter. Okay. And then Jacob has one question. Can you get pulled over by police for provocative bumper stickers? I imagine if they were hateful, that could be an issue, but I don't know what provocative means. That's too open-ended. But it could be a concern. I don't know under what area of the HTA, unless it was under the criminal side. I don't know. That's an interesting question. What's the lowest tint I can have? If we're talking about tint, it's specifically discussing how much you can have, how much light you can restrict on the windows, left and right of the driver and the windshield. Well, the windshield's 0. You can have no tint on your front windshield. In terms of left and right of the driver, 30% light blockage is the maximum permitted under the HTA, and for the safety requirements. In order to be safety, that's the maximum. More than that, we can pull your plates for unsafe vehicle. But there is a law that says, or an HTA offense that says you cannot obscure interior of motor vehicle with color or reflective coating. So if we can't see in, regardless of what the percentages of tint that you have, if it's reflective or not, reflective or colored and too dark, we can't see in. It's against the law, $110 fine. We have to be able to see in. That it includes for the reasons of identifying a driver, for seeing if you're wearing your seatbelt, if you're talking on the phone, if you're drinking alcohol, any observations. You are not entitled to privacy behind the wheel of your motor vehicle. Picking your nose is a public event when you're driving. What do we hear? What to do? Andre has a question. What is the question? I have a question about catalytic converters. The law states, it's a long thing I'm reading quickly. Does that mean I can convert? I'm going to have to look into that. That's more involved, and I don't want to give you bad information. So my understanding with catalytic converters, if they were manufactured with a catalytic converter, they got to stay in. If the vehicle was manufactured predating emissions rulings, then they aren't required to stay in. But I'd have to look further into your question. So that's a thing. What are the rules about having a gasoline bike conversion kit? The rules are simply, they're not legal for the road. Simple as that. You cannot have an e-bike. You can have an e-bike because that's an electric motor. It's covered by legislation. The gas-powered conversion kits make a bicycle into a motor vehicle. They're not covered under the e-bike legislation. You cannot be on the road. Private property is the only place you can operate that here in Ontario. Different provinces, different states, I understand there may be different rules in regards to displacement and whatnot. In Ontario, not allowed at all whatsoever. Okay. Did Ford ask police to remove plate stickers like he did on front plate removal? I am not aware of whether or not he asked us about stickers. I imagine he didn't because I think there was a lot of discussion about police being unhappy about it originally. But I that's just based on media, that not any inside information that I have. Let's see here. We got Kuram who wants to know, I am currently at the age of 20 in semester 4 for college taking community and justice services. I want to join law enforcement. What should I do next? Volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. That's a huge component of policing. We want to see that you're committed to the communities you want to protect and serve. But you know what? Just stay vigilant, stay out of trouble, keep a clean driving record. That's huge. And then when you're ready to apply, actually before you're ready to apply, research the police services that you want to apply. You want to know as much about those services as you can, so you can speak eloquently about them. And you may be asked about fact-finding questions to know how much you know. You want to be knowledgeable about the things that you're interested in when applying for a police service. But it's a great time to apply. In fact, if you're interested in becoming a member of the Toronto Police Service, check out www.torontopolice.on.ca/careers or tps.ca/careers. I keep forgetting about the fact that we have an itty-bitty URL now versus the big one. But regardless, you should apply. Great time to become a police officer. It's always been a great job, but we just happen to be really looking for applicants right now. 3 classes a year, I think, is the plan. Can you drive with people in the back of a pickup truck? I'm told this is illegal when the seatbelts in the cab are being used. No, that there used to be what I would best describe as a loophole that said that as long as every seat belt was occupied, then you could have more. That's not the case. The wording has changed. Everyone in the vehicle must be occupying a seat designed for someone to sit in and have a seatbelt available. That's it. There is no loophole. You cannot travel with someone in the back flatbed of a truck in Ontario. I'm sure in other places there are different rules. I was in Georgia many years ago on a motorcycle trip, and a truck traveling with a number of people in a pickup truck rolled over. Bodies were everywhere. Not a pretty sight. Do not ride in the back of a pickup truck. Not safe. Okay. What else? I think we got all those. Yes, we got all those. Okay, moving back over to... here, Bud says, good morning, Sean. Good morning to you. All right. Can I report someone that parked in an accessible parking space without having the permit? Yes, you can. In Toronto, we actually have a website. If you go onto our link tree, there is actually a online reporting link, and I believe accessible parking or immediate parking concerns is a specific link within that page. So check it out in our link tree. We have I'm trying to include all of the useful link opportunities for you, so you don't have to hunt around. I recently updated it to include the VIN number check if you're buying a car to make sure that you are not buying a stolen car. And I also included a link to check the status of driver's licenses, because if you're going to loan your car to somebody, you need to make sure you're responsible to ensure that they're licensed and that their license is valid. Otherwise, you can be charged under the Highway Traffic Act, so I've got a link to that there as well. What do we got here? We talked about that. Please explain stop here on red light sign. Can you make a right turn on a red after the stop? Yes, you must stop there. That's where the stop must take place. If it's an offset intersection, wait until it changes. In terms of that's where you're required to stop. After you've made that complete stop and it's safe to proceed, if you're making a right turn, as long as it is safe to do so, you should be fine. And obviously there's no sign saying you can't turn right on a red. How old you have to be to drive an e-bike? You have to be 16 years old in the province of Ontario to operate an e-bike. What else can I tell you about that? Even to be a passenger, you can't have passengers that are under the age of 16. And I've seen many people on e-bikes taking their kids. Not legal, not safe. Okay. Can a radar gun give inaccurate results? Radar guns give accurate results. They support the observations made by officers. Now, radar guns is something that you should probably forget about, because we don't really use radar guns. We use laser speed measurement devices, which are incredibly accurate and pinpoint accuracy. See, radar sends out a beam. And then based on the way that the radar works and the way the system works, it gives you the fastest, largest moving, was it the fastest? You know what? I can't remember what it is. It's the largest, fastest moving piece of material. So in the sense of a large motor vehicle approaching, you got to make observations to figure out what's going on. So it doesn't just work where you press a button and go. Whereas a laser, you're using a scope, you're looking at a specific vehicle, and you're targeting that vehicle. It's not a confusion situation where you have to decode the information. So it's much more accurate because it's a laser. A better way to describe it right now. But we haven't used radar guns in forever. We have radar, moving radar in motor vehicles. That's different. It still requires observations and an understanding of the device and how it works. Okay, but it's always supporting the observations of an officer. Do cyclists on a bike trail need to dismount when crossing the street that intersects with the bike path? If they're in so they have to cross a crosswalk. They can't ride across a crosswalk. And that's where the dismounting things. Is it safer? I teach my kids to get off the bike and make sure that they're going. Because when people ride through, and this is obviously will upset cyclists, but when you ride through somewhere, yeah, you're faster when you ride through, but you also are possibly taking less care and attention to what you're doing. Because very often I see cyclists just go right across the street. Maybe they get through, but maybe they get smoked. Is it law? Unless there's a crosswalk there, I don't think it's law. But I may be wrong. Can someone in rollerblades take up an entire lane of traffic? Saw this in the city. Rollerblades aren't legal for the road. They're not supposed to be on the road. So no, they shouldn't be taking up an entire lane of traffic. They shouldn't be on the road. Is it safer to drive the speed limit or match the flow of traffic? I noticed no one in Ontario. I don't know what else. So you're not allowed to break the law. I'm not going to tell you to break the law because I don't break the law. I choose to set the speed at the speed limit. That's where I go. Upsets a lot of people. And you know what? If they have indigestion because I go the speed limit, so be it. But the speed limit's the limit, nothing over it. So is it safer? Other people need to slow down. And what we really need to do is get everybody else to slow down by issuing a lot of tickets, in my opinion. But you need to get on that highway, and then you should be at the speed limit. And if you're going to be speeding, which you shouldn't be doing, stay to the left lane. If you're in the right lane, you should be doing no more than the speed limit. And again, no one should be going over the speed limit, but the people in the left lane, it's much easier for us to catch the people speeding if they stay in one place. Yeah. And please don't be a bully. You know what? Speeders are bullies. They run up behind you, they honk, they flash lights. Those people should be taken off the road. I know it's not popular for people to say this, but they should lose their licenses. And we do that by giving lots of tickets, and then they can't afford the insurance, or they get points taken off and get suspended. And that's how enforcement works. That's why it works. We've had some pretty serious collisions recently. One horrific one that I don't know the details of other than what I saw in the media in Barrie. It's a tragedy to the families and the community there. I can't imagine what you're going through, and my condolences. In terms of things happening in the city, we've seen things on the 401 yesterday. There was, I believe it was yesterday, a motorcycle that was allegedly lane splitting that was involved in a collision. Pictures of that motorcycle are unbelievable. There's not much left. I understand that they're still alive. I don't know the details, but I have a friend who told me that he saw that person doing roughly 50 kilometers over the speed of traffic through in between traffic. That's just what a friend of mine who was there said. Not a police officer, just someone who happened to be driving on the road at the time. Speeding kills. So does impaired driving, so does distracted driving, so does aggressive driving. We know this, and that's why we have a dedicated team of officers who go out and try and change driver behavior one ticket at a time. But speeding is one of the most popular ways to get killed or kill somebody else. And yet, it's become acceptable practice. So many people defend speeding. And I'm sorry if you're a speeder and you don't agree, too bad. But we know that we know that speeding is wrong. Something that's interesting. What was I going to say? I was talking about this morning. We have had 39 deaths that I'm aware of in Toronto in 2022, unless that's gone up over the weekend. 39. Somehow, all the folks who break the law every day on our roads seem to not have a big problem with the 39 that died, even though they're doing things that contribute to making the roads unsafe for pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicle users. 39 is too many people there should be no deaths on our roads. And when we look at the homicides, I think we were at 44, maybe we're at 45 now. People are enraged about 45 people being killed through crime. What is the difference about a death that is involved by criminal activity or road collision? In my opinion, it's still a loss of life, and it's just as important. But somehow we will have people get up and yell and scream about guns and all sorts of problems in crime, but say nothing about the activities taking place on our roads every day that put people at risk. I have a real problem with that. Last year, we had 60 people die on our roads. We had fewer people dying as a result of criminal activity. Still, people are complaining more about the criminal activity deaths than the ones that take place on our roads every day that anybody could just become involved in because someone made a choice to be unsafe. Okay, rant over. Although I'm sure I will rant about this again because I have a real problem with it. We see too much. We see too many people, too many lives changed, too many families impacted, too many communities hurt to just pretend that it's okay to speed and it's okay to be on a cell phone while you're driving. It's not. Did I say rant over and then start to rant again? I think I did. Okay. Can vehicles from Alberta go to Ontario because Alberta vehicles don't have front plates? Yes, you can visit. If your vehicle is registered in a province that doesn't require a front plate, you can visit here as long as you are conforming with that requirement of how many plates you're issued. We're not expecting you to crochet a front license plate when you come for a visit. But if you're issued two, you're expected to display two. Okay. Also, it's a $110 fine for someone who's here not using their front plate. For you, you get to come in because you don't have one. Interesting thing, though, I think Alberta allows learner's permits to be issued or people to be licensed at age 14. If you come to Ontario at 14, you're not eligible to drive. You have to be 16 minimum to drive here. Sorry if this is being covered, but how are these electric bikes getting away with no license, insurance, etc.? So an electric bicycle or an e-bike is a motor vehicle, same as a moped, except if it's modified, e-bike only, or limited, I should say, and conforming to the rules of the e-bike legislation, then it's considered a bicycle, not requiring license, ownership, and insurance. The moment it does not meet the requirements of the e-bike legislation, it is a motor vehicle again. It's this wonderful piece of magic that allows things to happen in a controlled environment. So what are those rules? Maximum 32 kilometers an hour on a flat surface. Helmets must be worn. No more than 500 watts of motor power, and no more than 120 kilos in weight. There's a bunch of other things too, but those are the requirements. So when someone modifies it and is doing 40 clicks, that is an illegal motorcycle because it would require license, ownership, and insurance. And I see lots of them. I see lots of people who are violating this rule. They are basically getting motor vehicles and driving them without license, ownership, and insurance, putting themselves and others at risk. Those vehicles have not been safetied at greater speeds. They are not legal for the road, and those people need to be charged and held accountable. And I would really love to see the sale of these be regulated so that the people who sell them and modify them can be held accountable. But that's just a me thing, just saying. I'd like to see some action there. What do we hear here? Can you get a ticket if your plate is peeling? Absolutely. You're required to make sure that your plate is in good condition. And people say, well, I want to put a license plate cover on to make sure it stays. No. You have a 5-year warranty on your license plate. If it's peeling in that time, get it replaced for free. If it's not peeling within that time, you might be charged $52, I believe, is the fee. Either way, it's your responsibility to make sure it's legible, easily legible. And a lot of people don't like that. Too bad. What is this? How long does it take? How long does the report take to come back from a collision center? So when you make a report, I don't know how long they take inside their place. When I do a collision report on scene, they have to be filed with the ministry within 10 days. And maybe Sergeant Campbell knows the answer to this question.
No, Sergeant Campbell just happened to be walking.
He just happened to be walking by and possibly even joining us.
Well, now that you called me out,
you can't just hang out and listen. You got to respond.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
I am doing well. We've been chatting about a lot of stuff and things, and one of the questions that came by, I read it as you walked up. How long does the report take to come back from the collision center? So I know that we have 10 days to file it with the ministry when it's an officer investigating at scene. Is it the same for collision reporting center?
We have 7.
7 days? Oh.
We have 7.
Okay, 7 days, not 10 days.
So who is asking for the report to come back?
I don't know, other than someone on TikTok.
So somebody is looking for a copy of their report.
Well, that they'd have to pay for. They'd have to order it, I imagine, through the form. It's a form or in person, but I think it's $75 or so.
Yeah, it's usually paid by your insurance company. Actually, talking about that, it's your insurance company's responsibility because they're the one that wants the form. Make sure your insurance company isn't making you go get it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people being asked to go get that so that the insurance company doesn't have to pay. That's not nice.
No, not nice at all. That's what you pay your insurance for. So, so it has to be filed to the ministry within 7 days. So, but that may not complete the entire investigation. So when you attend the collision reporting center or a police officer comes to investigate it, it's a start of an investigation. It's not just a report. That's a portion of it because the ministry mandates that we forward all the reports to them. But the investigation may not be complete at that point. So depending on what you're looking for, it could take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and it's a good point about it being an ongoing investigation. The initial collision report portion has to be filed, but the report may be a more long-term, or the entire case and charges and so on. It might take longer.
Right, the investigation itself.
Yeah. Can I be charged for stunt driving on my dirt bike on my property, hitting jumps and wheelies? So this is an unplated dirt bike, I'm assuming, and it's still a motor vehicle. And based on that, I would assume that you are covered. You're not if your property is not considered a track or an off-road track of some kind. But I'm stretching it here because that's sort of an untested area.
It is untested. So if you look at the letter of the law, then yes, stunt driving can happen anywhere. The meaning behind the law, though, is something a little bit different. It was to stop these takeover type events or stunt drivers from going into private parking lots and doing donuts and putting people at risk, even though they're on private property, but where other people have access to it. So, like I said, anybody can go into an open parking lot, and if you're driving in a manner that is, stunt driving, you put people at risk. So that's the thought behind the law. But if you read it specifically, it's anywhere.
They've even gone so far as to say farmers' fields and above ground, below ground garages. And I think they did that because if you had a farmer's field, or whether you had access to it by permission or not, and you were to hold an event, that would be breaking the law, and they would want to do that. Yeah. We're not camping out in your backyard.
You know what? And they do go as far as saying even beach. So
yeah.
If you're driving on the beach. So the thought behind it is to keep people safe where people have access to it.
I like it. Kenzie has a question. I have a question. That's what their question says. I have a question. What can police do if someone slides their car into yours on purpose? Someone did it to ours a few years ago, which resulted in my parents going to hospital. Kenzie, what you described sounds like an intentional attempt to hurt you, and that it goes beyond a simple collision when you say intent. And it's hard to prove intent, but or harder in a situation because collisions happen through a lot of different reasons, So it depends. A collision investigation would take place, and I imagine it did, and it would be up for the officers to determine and lay appropriate charges.
Yeah, it certainly could be criminal. It could be dangerous driving. Could be assault with weapon. Could be. It all depends on the totality of the investigation.
Well, and that's the whole thing. It's not. We can't simply say this happened, thus we'll lay this charge. We analyze things, we go through it, and we look to see what fits and what's most appropriate. And sometimes that's a sliding scale based on observations, witness statements, and
even the available evidence to be gathered. Sometimes we have a feeling something happened and why it happened, but we can't prove it. And if we don't have all the elements of the charge, we can't lay it.
That's it. Going back, Andre Iro, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but he had a question about catalytic converters and the law stating that if a motor vehicle is manufactured with a catalytic converter, no person shall ever or cause or permit the alteration of the motor vehicle in a manner that permits exhaust emissions. Okay, that's a very long regulation that he's cut and paste, but apparently the regulation was revoked on January 1st, 2020, and he wants to know if that means he can remove his catalytic converter.
So
it was likely replaced with another.
I would say so. So I'm going to, you know what, not knowing the regulation and what it was replaced with, because I have a feeling if it got replaced, it would be replaced with something even stronger.
Yes, they don't make them less impactful.
So if your vehicle is manufactured with a catalytic converter, it has to be there. It has to be functional. And by functional, it means you can't hollow it out and, make it look like it's there. Early cars had, smog pumps and horsepower rubbing things that ran off the drive belts, and we've replaced it with much more efficient, much better technology. Even back then, though, in the 70s and 80s, when we had all this smog equipment that was on there, it still needs to be there.
A question came out in some other order, and it was asking about exhaust tips. And Neon popped a question into the Q&A section of Volley to say that exhaust tips cannot stick out more than 1 inch from the rear of the vehicle. It's good to know. I didn't even know that. I just knew that they were aesthetic only. They don't change anything.
Is that a vehicle?
He's a mechanic. He says based on his safety, I guess. That's his understanding. So I'm parroting what Neon the mechanic says as opposed to looking it up.
Oh, okay. So I don't believe that there's anything in the Highway Traffic Act that says it. There may be some in the regulations, but you got to think about it. If you got some really hot pipes that are coming out the back with hot gases coming out of it, you don't want to stick it out any farther than that because it could injure somebody. Rub your leg up against it, and you may get burnt.
I have walked into Harley pipes that stuck out. Big fishtail ones. They sharp and hot, not good.
Yeah.
Chase says, good morning from rainy Muskoka.
Rainy Muskoka.
Is that the nutty chocolatier still in Muskoka? I haven't been to Muskoka in like 20 years.
I think Huntsville. I think Huntsville has one.
Is that Huntsville? Okay.
I believe so.
My M2 expired during COVID. I couldn't get my M. Is there an extension or do I have to start all over? You are covered under an extension until December 31st of this year. So get out there and get it done before it expires. That would be my suggestion. If you can, do it. Yeah, any M1, M2, G1, G2 extended right until the end of this year. As long as it expired March 2020 or later. Okay. If you are a student renting a house for university, should your plates/license be this address? So if that is your address where you live, then yes, that's your residence for that time. And it's an update you do online. It's free. And think about this. If something were to happen to you, if someone reported you missing, where would we go? We'd go to the address on your driver's license because that's a clue. And if that's not where you live, we're adding lots of time to finding you and helping you. So the most recent and most accurate address is what should be listed, where you actually live.
You know what, Sean? It's frustrating, especially when we have there's an emergency situation, something's happened to a family member, in situations like that, and we can't locate somebody because they have not updated their address. Plus, if you get parking tickets or you get something in the mail, you want to know about it before they suspend your driver's license.
That's bad when that happens, right?
Yep. Even if it goes to your parents' house or something like that, that delay can cause you to get it suspended without even knowing about it.
The bad things happen. Now, if you have access to mail, if someone's opening your mail, better than not, but by where you live is where you should be.
And that's what the Act says.
And lots of people argue it. Some people have post office boxes. Also, you don't live in the post office box, but hey. Rob Baker wanted to know, what is the website to check if your license plate is valid? I responded with a link. And the link is our link tree, which is linktr.ee/traffic services. It should be in our profile everywhere on all our platforms. If you go there, one of the first links or buttons will be for checking driver's license and checking another one for checking VIN numbers. We're getting all automated, all automagical. Okay. Is there any way to clean your record after getting a ticket? Well, the convictions come off your current history after 3 years after conviction. When you have points, they come after 2 years after the date of the offense. But to actually clean it, we don't do pardons for traffic collisions or traffic charges. You can't get it sealed that I'm aware of.
No, and we will have access to it. But what is used by your insurance company or other entities is limited to that time frame.
Somebody wants to know what the maximum CC or displacement is that you can ride without a license. There is no displacement that you're permitted to ride without a license. If you have a motor vehicle, regardless of the displacement of your engine, it's a motor vehicle. And we talked about that a little earlier. Conversion kits, people think if it's 49cc, it's legal to ride. That's a moped. It might be a low-power moped, but it's a motorcycle, or covers a motor vehicle requiring a motorcycle license, insurance, and a license plate. Years and years ago, mopeds were covered under G license. I think it was pre-2008. You could ride a moped with a G-class license, and that's not the case anymore. You have to have a motorcycle license. And conversion kits are not legal for the road anywhere.
No. Obviously, they're not manufactured. Your bicycle's not manufactured to have an engine on it. Brakes aren't manufactured to, stop you going excessive speeds and with the extra weight.
Yes. How long does a 7-day suspension stay on the record and affect the insurance? Suspensions don't go away. Their history is there. I don't know what insurance companies see, but in terms of the fact that a suspension is there, as far as I know, it's permanent history.
And in Ontario, with escalating sanctions, your first one could be a 7-day. Your next one could be longer. Hopefully,
it goes up and up.
Get another one. But
is the third or fourth one a lifetime ban? Is there something like that? I think it escalates in that range.
Yeah, but it's not something we as the police would be looking at. That would be the courts.
Yes. Bad things happen. Don't drive impaired. 7-day suspensions are related to impaired operation offenses. Or warn, again, still related to impaired. When you do stunt driving, if you are involved in that, that's going to be longer term, 30-day suspensions, and then they go up from there.
Yeah, and your vehicle impoundment's 14 days.
Yes. I think that the impaired stuff should go up too, but that's not my department. Let's see here. Front passenger seat buckle became loose, cab. Oh, can I be charged if I let people sit there and drive? So a non-functioning seatbelt is a problem. It has to be a safe, proper functioning. If it's defective, get it fixed. Could you be charged for having defective, non-functioning seatbelts in your vehicle and having passengers in there? I imagine you could.
Yes.
It's not working properly.
Yes, there's an HCA charge for not having a functional seatbelt. And you set yourself up knowing that something was wrong with it and the passenger gets in and gets hurt, they would, I guess the term is sue the pants off you.
Yeah, because they would obviously know it doesn't work, and then you would say, well, I know about that, but we just go to the store, and then something happens, and they're aware that you knew, and bad things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a ticket for a unfortunate conversation followed by possible bankruptcy. Is it legal to drink on your driveway, like not in a vehicle, just standing on your driveway? I'm not a big drinker nor a enforcer of driveway consumption of alcohol. In your vehicle, it's not legal. But outside of your vehicle, can you have a pint on your lawn?
You certainly can.
Fantastic.
Yep. And your lawn ends at the sidewalk, just so you're aware.
So if you're on the street or at the sidewalk or beyond, that could be a problem.
Yeah, so you'll be in a public place if you're there, and you could be eligible for a ticket. But on your property, that is yours.
Okay. Does my son need my ownership when he's driving my car with my permission? Yes, the operator, the person driving that motor vehicle, is required to surrender upon demand a license, ownership, and insurance for the vehicle that they're operating. Their insurance, your insurance, your permit, which is the ownership document, and their license. And they can have a photocopy of the permit, but they must be able to surrender it, or they'll be charged for fail to surrender. Okay. Can I ride a small dirt bike in the bike lane? No. Dirt bikes are motor vehicles, and dirt bikes are not road legal, regardless of their size. Are pocket bikes allowed to be rode in parks and sidewalks? Pocket bikes are motor vehicles and not permitted to be utilized anywhere other than private property. They're not street legal. They certainly can't be used in parks. They would also require license, ownership, and insurance if they were legal for the road, and definitely not parks. Parks are nowhere parks. I imagine if there was a motorcycle park that was a private trail kind of situation, or a racetrack. It would be a racetrack where those would be private property and permitted.
Yeah, dirt bikes, there are trails that are allowed. They're open to the public that you can ride it on. There are private property parks, one up near my cottage, that allows you to explore the entire property and has a racetrack on it as well.
Here is a question. Can we drive a car without an airbag? If the vehicle was manufactured without an airbag, sure. But the vehicle manufactured with an airbag, where you remove the airbag, well, first of all, removal is illegal, and it's no longer a safe vehicle. Seatbelt restraint systems work in conjunction, seatbelts with airbags now. That vehicle is designed to work that way. If you remove it, it's no longer safety. And having spoken to master technician, who is a mechanic, says that if you take it out, it voids your safety. And I did not know that, but he said that. And I presume that he's correct. Let's see here. Does a toddler in a car seat count as a second passenger for the purposes of a high occupancy vehicle lane? Yes, they're human. They're people. Despite their age, they are legal. Puppies and fur babies, not people. They are not counting. Okay. Hey, Sean, I tried to notice this every summer. It sounds like Indy 500 in Toronto at night. I often wonder how come I don't hear police sirens pulling them over. Is it just me who wonders this? No, there are many, many, many people in Toronto who wonder this. The truth is we have officers. Those officers are either seeing them and pulling them over, or not seeing them and not pulling over. We obviously respond to the people who we observe. The behavior is a serious problem in the city of Toronto and in communities across Ontario, that people with modified or illegal exhaust systems, or driving, even with legal systems, driving in a manner that causes unnecessary noise. Yeah, when we see it, we deal with it. We obviously and unfortunately can't be everywhere all the time. And when people call and complain about a muffler or an exhaust situation, they're long gone by the time we would be able to get there. So it is a bit of cat and mouse, and it's unfortunate that people are selfish enough to create unnecessary noise. It really does negatively impact the communities that they are driving through, and somehow, some way, nobody seems to acknowledge it from the communities that choose to put these on their vehicles. What do you think about mufflers that are noisy?
I think they need to be muffled.
They have to be muffled. Okay. Do you know any places to volunteer that law enforcement truly look at? This is a Kuram who asked earlier about becoming a police officer. You know what? It doesn't matter where you volunteer. It's that you volunteer. If you volunteer at a retirement home, you volunteer at a kids club, you volunteer with the police as an auxiliary officer, giving of your time freely for a greater good, for helping the community. That's what we're looking for. And I don't think the details as to where are important. It's that you do it. But talk to a recruiter. Reach out to the fine folks at our talent acquisition unit. They can be reached by going to the website www.tps.ca/careers. All the information you'd ever want and more is there. Get in touch with a recruiter. They'd be able to guide you through the process.
You know what, Sean, my suggestion to that would be volunteer. It's something that means something to you internally. You know what? Give back in a way that you feel proud of.
Yeah, and doing something that you don't like is going to be painful. Find something that you do like. If you volunteer in the sports environment because you're a sports person, if you're a soccer player who loves soccer, go volunteer and coach soccer. That's going to be something that's fun for you while also contributing. If you volunteer at an accounting firm, you're probably going to want to, not volunteer there. I don't know if they have many volunteer opportunities at accounting firms. I'm just saying. Let's see here. I see a lot of kids riding around on these e-bikes on roads with no helmets. Is that considered a motor vehicle at that point, and would helmets be required? So e-bikes, first of all, you have to be 16 years old to operate them, and you must always wear a helmet regardless of your age. So yeah, they're violating rules. They're not motor vehicles unless they are not conforming to the requirements of the legislation. Now, that means 32 kilometers max speed, 500-watt motor, no more, and no more than 120 kilos.
I'm going to say, Sean, that they are motor vehicles no matter what.
True.
But they have an exemption for certain aspects of it.
You in the technical wording, yes, you're absolutely correct.
So no matter what, an e-bike is a motor vehicle. But you don't have to have a license or insurance if you follow the criteria.
But Vito, they do require any person, rider or occupant, or occupant, second passenger. If it's an e-bike, everyone there has to be 16 years old and must be wearing a helmet. E-kick scooters, which are not permitted in the city of Toronto because there's a pilot there, but it's only for municipalities that chose to adopt it. And those allow people who are 14 years old to operate them. You have to wear a helmet until you're 18, and they have different rules. Maximum speed 24 kilometers an hour, but again, not permitted in Toronto at all. Crystal says, hello, Sergeant. Hello, Sean. Does the sergeant not like the camera? Have a good day. It just worked out that, through COVID, we were distancing, and we got into the habit of having long microphone cables and set up the second station a bit away. In the future, I'm sure we will have more faces on camera, but we've been saying that for almost 2 years.
Yeah, you know what? I don't mind being in front of the camera. I have a face for radio and a voice for, TikTok, Twitter, maybe.
A voice for Twitter. That's perfect.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. In fact, I do an awful lot in the media, in the old school media, at collision scenes and things like that. So if you're looking for me, there's an awful lot of YouTube video out there of me.
Standing at collision scenes.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Fine. What is the fine for a group of cyclists who take up a full lane, not riding single file, but actually taking up an entire lane? I'm not aware of. I mean, I know it's an offense to not. They can be charged for not driving at the side of the road, but they do have the ability of taking the full lane if there was a safety concern. So, but I'd have to look it up. I think it's something to do with impeding traffic.
You know what? When you're traveling slower than the movement of traffic, then you should stay over to the right-hand side and allow people to get past you. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when they just want to, chat and ride and take up the entire lane. But the responsibility also is on the driver to go around them safely and leave 1 meter gap before they do so.
Zachary McCartney wants to know about license. Well, we talked earlier about license plates, and that if you're from another province and you are issued only one license plate, are you allowed to operate in Ontario without only one license plate? And of course, we said you can, because you can only display what you're issued. So his follow-up question is, does this understanding work with Tint, knowing that tint laws in other provinces where you can have darker tint in Ontario, would you be exempt driving with darker tint in Ontario? Well, that's a safety rule. So we consider that to be unsafe for the road here. So you could be charged here for tint, even though it's legal elsewhere, is my understanding.
So there's no charge in the Highway Traffic Act for the percentage of tint. It's a vehicle safety thing where it's measured that way. But at any time, we cannot see in your vehicle. We cannot see if you're wearing your seatbelt. We can identify the driver. Then that's the charge here, is obscuring the interior. So it doesn't matter what the level of tint is. If it's obscured and we can't see it, it's chargeable.
But let's say a windshield tint, where an Ontario vehicle with windshield tint could have the license plates pulled. Would we pull the license plates of a Quebec plated vehicle for windshield tint?
I'm not actually sure of any jurisdiction that would be silly enough to allow your front windshield to be tinted.
I think there's one. I think there's one, and I shouldn't say it. There was a guide, a website that had every tint law for Ontario or for Canada, and I believe I saw one that permitted it, but it was very minimal into the volume, and I don't know why anyone would do that. It's a really silly idea. So if you're from somewhere that has front windshield tint laws that permit it,
let us know.
Let us know. We'd like to know. I'll have to googly-goo it afterwards to confirm. But yeah, it's considered unsafe here, and just like insurance, if you don't have insurance on your vehicle and you're coming from a country that doesn't require insurance, or a state that has no insurance laws, well, we wouldn't let it. We should not be letting it onto our roads at all, regardless of what the laws are back home. What do we have here? Good morning from Stephen Bell, who says he's late and he's sorry.
Good morning, Stephen.
Is it legal for someone to have bulletproof glass on their car? I'm not aware of any law that says you can't.
No, as long as you can see through it and it doesn't obscure your vision.
But something to consider, if you have bulletproof or bullet-resistant glass and you're involved in a collision, that might make it harder for people to help you, like paramedics and, EMS fire trying to get into your vehicle to save you in the event of a collision. You're creating extra work. So I don't know what your requirements are or why you'd be concerned about bulletproofing, but maybe things to think about.
You know what? I look at the armored cars and the armored carriers for the companies that transport money and valuables and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I believe that's.
It is.
Yep.
I used to drive one.
Oh,
I worked for Brinks many moons ago, and those are big, heavy trucks. Bulletproofing a vehicle is no small task. It creates a very, very heavy, slow-moving truck. I got into, was it the Prime Minister's stretch limo? I was inside of I used to work with the motor squad. We were involved in dignitary escorts all the time, and I had the opportunity to take a drive in a bulletproof stretch limo. This is not a light vehicle. It was a beast. Actually, maybe it was a beast. Maybe it was a presidential. I don't know what it was. It was a stretch limo that was bulletproof. That's all I know. Okay. Is it legal for it to have my primary address, a place I spend 40% of my time, and I want the insurance with the address that's cheaper? Is this allowed? A lot of people would like cheaper insurance.
Like your cottage or something like that? No.
Yeah, you got to be honest and upstanding. I don't know, with your insurance company, because they will take it out on you in the form of insurance fraud if they determine that you're doing something that's not legit.
And you know what? When you actually need your insurance because you've got something going on that you're facing, that's not the time to find out that your insurance company says, "Sorry, no way."
Yes, thanks for coming up, but we're not paying for your car. It's a problem.
Paying for your car, or paying for your lawsuit, or anything.
The bad things can happen. What do we have here? A parked car opens a door with traffic flowing and their door gets hit. Who's at fault? If you open your vehicle door into traffic, you're at fault. In fact, there's a charge specifically for someone who does that, whether it's the passenger or the driver.
You know what? We as Toronto Police were instrumental in getting that law put into place.
No kidding.
With the ministry, it also is a reportable collision as well, even though the motor vehicle isn't moving.
So whether a cyclist gets hit or hits you because you open the door into traffic, or you get hit by another vehicle, it's on you. And leaving a door open for an unnecessary a lot of time is also against the law. You can't just leave your door open into traffic and walk away. We're running out of time. I got to keep going. Do car seats expire? Is that a myth? They do expire. So do motorcycle helmets. The foam that are used to create them, to manufacture them, actually becomes stale, becomes brittle and less safe. So they do expire. It's a real deal. Does TPS ticket cars on shopping mall property? Parking enforcement may enforce rules when it comes to certain parking. If there's a bylaw in place and we do the work there, we don't enforce Highway Traffic Act on private property unless we're talking about stunt driving or certain things in relation to collisions and even collisions. It's the report that we deal with and people who choose not to report collisions, but not the actual offense of stop signs and whatnot. A lot of that's not enforceable. But stunt driving is. And what was the one about license plates? Something about license plates being modified.
License plates being modified?
I thought that was a charge under the HTA that was enforceable on private property.
Well, if you have the improper license plates on your vehicle, even on private property, even in your own driveway, it is a charge under the HTA, and your plates can be seized.
Someone wants to know if they can beat a speeding ticket if they were going downhill.
Like beat it with a stick, or
I don't know if that's where they were going with it. I think they want to know if gravity is a defense for speed.
Yeah, we have this mechanical device in your car.
Hydraulics are involved?
Hydraulics are involved, or air.
Ooh.
And it's made to slow your vehicle down so it doesn't actually...
What do they call it?
Oh, that was... Yes. No, you do not have an exemption for going down a hill. The speed limit is the speed limit no matter what.
Yeah, those things called brakes, you're supposed to use them. Or if you're in a manual vehicle, very often people gear down. But yeah, gravity is not an excuse. There is no out for speeding downhill. Although skateboards and bicycles, they're not enforceable under the HTA for speed. So I guess gravity does work for them. Let's see here. Can I change the color of my car? Getting your car painted is permissible. However, you do need to report it to the Ministry of Transportation through Service Ontario. If you don't do that within 6 days, you'll be pulled over, or you could be pulled over. You'd be charged for failing to update your registration, I think is the wording, possibly, maybe.
Yeah, you know what? You may find getting pulled over an awful lot of times too.
Yes.
I would pull over vehicles that don't have the correct color in it because I want to make sure actually that the license plates and the ownership belong to that vehicle. And sometimes I do and check the VIN number and check the insurance and all that, and everything is good, but they still haven't updated it. So if you get your vehicle wrapped, same thing.
Yes, any significant change. Like if you do a pinstripe, that's not changing the color. It's not suddenly multicolor. But 50% of the vehicle, somewhere along there, anything significant, you should be updating. And yeah, we pull over vehicles because we find it suspicious. we call it a clue that it might be, not the right vehicle. Very often people steal license plates of similar makes and models to then drive around with your license plate on it so they can give you tolls and basically drive for free with their stolen stuff. We like to investigate those people and we try and arrest them all. We have a question. Is it illegal for passengers to have their foot out the window while you're driving? Yeah, it's a bad idea. It might be improper use of your seatbelt because your seatbelt system won't stop you from sliding out underneath if you're not properly seated. So I would say it's improper use of seatbelt, potentially.
I actually saw one this weekend, Sean. Some guy with his foot out the window.
Driving or passenger?
He was a passenger. And I was wondering, when the next rock was going to be thrown up and hit him in the foot, or the June bug that's coming down. That would really, really hurt.
I've been hit in the face with all those bugs as a motorcyclist, but
Yep.
What I'm concerned about when they get into a collision and the leg gets torn clean off. That's sort of where I go with it. Or airbags deployed at 200 miles per hour. That's a bad day at the office.
Including your side curtain airbags, stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, burns.
Is there a charge for it? I don't think so, depending on the circumstances and depending on how you're seated. But is it a smart idea? No.
I have seen drivers or passengers with both feet on the dash, and I've seen them in a braking situation slide right out of their seatbelt. So I'd go in proper seatbelt. But for driver, I'd go careless driving. So I've seen left foot out window. I don't understand why on earth anyone would be. A, how are they that flexible? But B, why would you do that? It just makes no sense. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff. We're out of time. We're actually over time. Can you get a ticket for having scratches on your motorcycle helmet? Scratches would suggest impact. Impact suggests that they're no longer good for use. I don't think I'd ever inspect someone's helmet for scratches because that happens. But for your own benefit, you should know that if you drop or damage or have been involved in a collision, that helmet is garbage. It is not a proper helmet. Could someone potentially write you a ticket for improper helmet based on the scratches?
All depends.
Yeah, everything always depends. I have a helmet that I wore in a collision. I would never wear that helmet again because I value what I put in the helmet.
You know what, Sean? That's the one thing I really, truly stand on is no matter what, you have to wear a good quality helmet. I can live, should I get in an accident and, unfortunately, say lose a part of my body, my leg or my arm, I can still live with it. But if you scramble your noodle, you're done.
That's it, and it doesn't take a lot.
Nope.
If you look at it's a great example. I hate to point him out as the example, but Xanta, there's a guy that many people know in Toronto as a guy who had a head injury. He was on a ladder, he fell down, was never the same, and then he spent a lot of his life, I don't know where he's at now, running around downtown Toronto with us, doing bare knuckle push-ups on the street and wearing a Santa hat. But his head injury changed his life. So that's how easy it is. A bump on the head could change your future. Do everything you can do to protect yourself. And some say don't ride a motorcycle because of that. I love motorcycles, so now I just invest in the best helmet I can.
And you know what, Sean? I do the exact same thing, and all my family members have a really good quality helmets.
Yeah, those brain buckets that you can get for $20 at the surplus. Don't trust that to your. And I went down to, I think it was riding through Ohio. When I got there, we decided we're in a no helmet zone. We're gonna see what this is all about. We got off the highway. We took off our helmets. We strapped them to the bike. We get back on the highway. It was one exit. So we pulled off and put them right back on. It is so awkward and it didn't work.
Sean, I did exactly the same thing in Honolulu. Rented a Harley down there and made it around the block and came back and said, no, you got to find me a helmet. This isn't right.
Is no good. Andre wants to know about a blitz for excessive noise with modified exhaust. How do you determine what is excessive noise, especially compared to a Harley Davidson, which I assume is legal to be excessively loud? Actually, Harleys are very quiet when they come factory. Most owners take off those factory cans and replace it with aftermarket exhaust before they even leave the dealership. But when they're sold as a legitimate legal system, and I believe 92 decibels at idle is the maximum they're allowed to produce. So when you talk about what's reasonable, well, you're not supposed to wake up the neighbors with your exhaust. It should be 74 decibels for a motor vehicle at idle and 92 for a motorcycle. And the driving, like I've seen Lamborghinis that are quiet. I've seen Lamborghinis that someone's redlining them doing 40 because they're trying to get attention. That behavior is enough to generate a stop and a subsequent charge for unnecessary noise. So it is It is something based on observation. We don't use decibel meters to determine whether or not you get that charge. Sarge, anything to throw into that mix?
You know what, though? In the city of Toronto, there is a bylaw that does regulate the amount of noise coming out of motorcycles. And yes, they do have decimal meters. And yes, you could be stopped for it. Secondly, what's your thoughts on loud pipes save lives?
Well, they don't. It's a fallacy. Loud sirens don't even tell people to pull over if you're in motion because the Doppler effect sends that sound behind you. And that's with a forward-facing siren speaker. When you talk about an exhaust pipe, you're already starting with it behind you, and you're leaving it behind you because you're actually traveling through the airwaves. It doesn't work the way people think it does. It's a fallacy.
Yep, science.
Science. Yeah, weird. It's not even weird science, but I want to watch Weird Science again. I love that movie. Okay, we've gone 7 minutes over. I'm going to leave y'all with a couple of things. One, we will be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Two, if you want to ask us more questions, you can use the Q&A function in the main portion of TikTok if you're there, or for everybody else, if you want to communicate with us. Oh, you can go on the Q&A where two people left messages and I totally ignored you. My apologies. Trafficcop.ca will take you there. If you go into our link tree, which is the link in our bio, you can see all sorts of places to connect with us.
You know what, Sean? Let's have a look at those messages and let's
do
that and wrap it up real quick.
Sounds good. One of them was already addressed. It was Zachary. Actually, I think both are Zachary. He wanted to know about the 40% of his time address. We covered it already, and he covered up this. We got him, even though we didn't see in Q&A of what's it called, Volley. We did get you because they were covered elsewhere. You put it into Facebook as well. Was it Facebook? I don't know. They made it onto my screen one way or another through the help of everyone on the show, making it all happen behind the scenes. Thanks to CJ and to all of our friends who have been helping make it happen. Thank you to everybody who's helped us get to 594,491 followers on TikTok. It's 594 and a half. We're really getting close to 600,000.
There, you just got another one.
It happens. It's a live ticker. All right. With that, I say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow. Here is the traffic song because I love it.
Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow. Watch for pedestrians, look out for bikes, and don't drive like a jerk that no one likes. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Put down your cell phone, nobody needs you to text and drive on the DVP. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Stop at stop signs, look both ways, then go. Seatbelt, save your life indeed, and watch your driving. Don't speed. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Don't drink and drive or smoke some weed because you might go to jail and not get freed. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,